furry anime are so cute and cuddly, right? Oh god! Perhaps my initial statement was a bit biased, but it's difficult for one to overcome their biases, especially when they've become ingrained via societal norms, biological factors, and personal experience. For example, even though Haru displayed a face of ease and happiness while eating lunch with Legosi in episode 5, in reality, her fear was palpable, to the point that she could not stop her leg from twitching under the table. In addition, a symbolic moment was injected to exemplify the internal demons that were haunting Haru, as she outwardly expressed poise and confidence. But how is this scene concerning an anthropomorphic rabbit and wolf relevant to our own human species? After all, humans are one species and would not seek to eat each other like a wolf would do to a rabbit. Well, the implications are much broader than they first appear. The case with Legosi and Haru exemplifies the precarious dynamic between men and women. More specifically, the fear and trepidation women have in the presence of men. Unfortunately for women, they are the recipients of physical and sexual abuse from abrasive men. Therefore, they are always on guard from potential assailants. This was highlighted in episode 1 when Haru was walking by herself in the night and got chased down by Legosi. Her natural inclination, as is most women, was to run rather than fight, knowing that she would be at a physical disadvantage. And even when she got caught by Legosi, she became submissive, knowing that one wrong move could end in death. I believe the parallel of this potential predation incident is human rape, as noted by the fact that Legosi conflates his need for meat with love. And if you've read ahead in the manga, you'll know that Legosi notices this in one of the carnivores that he's chasing down as well. So it seems like this would validate the notion. Paru Itagaki, otherwise known as Chicken Girl, and the mangaka for Beastars, presents sexual assault in a palatable way.
Well, I get it. It's very clever.
Thereby allowing the audience to discuss these egregious issues with tact and a higher level of understanding, as opposed to other anime that utilize the abhorrent act to shock the audience for increased viewership. Looking your way, Goblin Slayer! But I still love you though. Another interesting bit of subtext is brought to the fore when the tenuous dynamic of the carnivores and herbivores becomes increasingly volatile. The concept I'm alluding to is xenophobia. Through the first 12 episodes, there's been little to no evidence of overt xenophobic remarks. Nevertheless, there have been numerous instances of aversive racism. As an example, the carnivores and herbivores recognize each other as equal and will outwardly express this toward one another. However, underneath their outward facade, it is evident that many herbivores harbor ill feelings towards the carnivores, and vice versa. This is evident in the stage performance that began in episode 3, where Lewis, an herbivore, was portrayed as the hero, and Bill, a carnivore, was the antagonist. When Bill took the role of the protagonist in Lewis's absence, the crowd was, more or less, ambivalent, and did not share in his triumph, as they did when Lewis reclaimed the role. This harkens to prejudices in our own culture that are underscored by an element of racism, i.e. the angry black man stereotype, the cowardly Frenchman stereotype, the border-jumping Mexican stereotype, and the list, unfortunately, goes on. For manga readers, Beastars has displayed moments of internal resentments among the various students at Cherryton Academy. Of course, the dichotomy of quote-unquote beast living with their quote-unquote prey is a somewhat horrifying notion, especially for the herbivores. Furthermore, the anime, unlike the manga, has obviated key scenes to portray the herbivores as innocent creatures with no misgivings. Lewis's murder of the Shishigumi boss in episode 10, for example, is seen as an act of heroism, and herein lies the brilliance. Because where the manga makes the state of affairs quite clear, the anime tricks you into believing the intended narrative. Just as a stage performance in episode 4 duped the audience into their ingrained confirmation bias, i.e., herbivores good, carnivores bad. Thus, the realization that both parties are guilty of harboring prejudice against one another will be all the more shocking for the viewer. And, hopefully, an eye-opening experience that will propel internal reflection about one's own internal biases, and how they influence certain behaviors in our everyday life. I realize the subjects I covered are pretty heavy stuff, but Beastars is an intellectually heavy anime, one that challenges your very being. Because while the show features anthropomorphic animals, it's really a story about the human condition. But what makes it more powerful than a show featuring human adolescents facing equivalent dilemmas is that we cannot superimpose ourselves onto the characters. For example, a Caucasian man would more easily relate to a white character in a fictional show, as opposed to any other race. But you can't say a white person identifies as a wolf, or a deer, or a bird. And it's because of this dissociation that we can evaluate the internal/external prejudices with a sense of objectivity. But before the objectivity hits us like a ton of bricks, the anime staff needs us to believe in the heroic herbivore paradigm, thereby proving the point that we are all biased, no matter how much we deceive ourselves otherwise. As a final thought, I would like to quote Friedrich Nietzsche, as I believe he's written a statement that is apt and a good summarization of Beastars as a whole. And I quote, "I have often laughed at weaklings who thought themselves good because they had no claws." I'll catch you on the flip side.